Welcome to Project 3 Dragon Tamer. Dragon Tamer has a plot. You are either a prince or a princess, and the dragon has captured your family, has taken over the castle. So you got to collect the dragon's snacks so you can tame the dragon and get your family back. Okay, what kind of game is Dragon Tamer? It is a maze game. And you're going to use arrow keys to move your character through the maze. Okay, and you have collection items. Just like Pac-Man had collection items, you have to collect those items and avoid an enemy. So the program's enemies are little fires that move around the maze. And you're going to lose a life when you hit one, and the player's going to scream. Okay, so we're going to add the background scream. And we're going to add background music for the game. It's a fun game to make. So how does this look to play it? Of course, you have the start screen. You click a play button. Then you have the music, which you choose. Then you can move your player with the arrow key. There you go. There's the scream. Collects food. Won't let her go to the next level, will it? She's got to get all that food. But you get the idea. So what do we do in Lab 1? We're basically adding the background on the maze. So here we go. We've opened up Flash. We do the usual. We select Action Script 2. We go File, Save. Then we go find that folder that we put our stuff in. And I like to drill down to our Project 2. I like to keep them all in the same place. Ooh, Project 3 I guess we're in. Drill down to Project 3. Here we go. We're going to call this Dragon Tamer. Now we set up our window the usual way. But you don't have to do this. If you like all these tools here, that's fine. We go to Workspace. We go to Reset Essentials. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away these like they tell you to in the other directions. You don't have to do this either. But they'll make your screen look like the screen in the illustration if you get rid of those. Okay. So now your workspace should look something like this. So there we got some terms. Document, that just means your Flash project. Document size. It's whatever's in this orange area on the stage. The size of the stage, that's pixels. It's measured in pixels. Those little dots of light that make up your screen. If you go to your television, you hold a magnifying glass to it, you can see little swirling dots of light. Well, maybe you'd have to have a stronger one for your computer, but it's the same thing. Those are pixels. So most computer screens, yeah, pretty much they're 550 by 400 pixels tall. So we want to change the pixel thing here for your Flash document to make it bigger. So it's the size of the computer screen. Another technical term you'll hear once in a while is your frame rate, or your frames per second. Okay, it's just how many movies, how many frames run through your movie per second. So it normally is 24. So that's why you put a stop function in. Remember we put in the stop function before? That stops it on a frame. And the frame rate also controls how often the content of the game is refreshed. So we're going to change that in Dragon Tamer. So that was all that was to do, is to explain what we're going to do next. We're going to click Modify, Document. So we're going to set it to 700. So use 550 pixels. We change that to 700 so it takes up the whole screen. And then our frame rate here is 24. If that changes, we just change it back. And then just click OK. Okay, now we're going to import the library. So we're going to go File, Import, Open External Library. So you guys know how to do this, remember? So now we're going to go into our Flash Game Development folder that we made. We're going to Resources, into Project 3. Then we're going to go find our Dragon assets. So just click Open. So now we're going to put all of these over here, right? So if you're dragging them one by one, make sure you're getting them all. Some of you guys have been dragging them one by one, have been missing some of them. So I grab the first one. This is how I grab them all. Hold down my Shift key and click the last one. So now I just drag them all under where it says name. Make sure I've got the green box around this. Now let go. And should copy them all down here. So I make sure I got them all. First one's required. Is first one required? Yes. Last one is win text. Drag down by win text. Make sure it's there. If you're dragging them one by one, make sure you count how many are here and count how many are here. Make sure they match up. Okay, you're all done. Click bye-bye. Then we go and we change our layer 1 to be background. And now we're going to drag our background onto this. So you grab background, drag it, and drop it. Then what do? You align it, right? Window, align. You align it to the left and you align it to the top, and it's done with that. So now I make me a new layer. I click the new layer button. Name layer level 2. Maze. Click enter. So now I'm going to drag the maze on here. I drag it and I drop it. Now to line it up, I've got to line it right. So I go window, align. Now instead of aligning it to the top, because we got a big space at the top, I'm going to align it to the center, and I'm going to align it to the bottom. So it should match the shadow on the background. Now make sure that you added the maze on the maze layer and not the background layer. What you can do is you can see this eye, you can hide that, and if the maze goes away, you have the right thing. Otherwise, just delete it and put it on this layer. And remember, we can lock these layers here so you're not putting something on the wrong layer. We'll add our third layer, we'll call it character. Now you get to choose whether you want to play with prince or princess. So you go get your character and you drag him to this open space right here in the middle on the bottom. There's a maze. Before we move on, make sure your layers are in order: character, maze, and background. Let's look at lives. So how many chances does a player have to play? That's how many lives that the player has, right? You play games before, you know this, how it works. So you make a mistake, you have another chance, right? This time we'll give them 3 chances. Some games also let the players earn more lives, but we're only going to let the player have 3. So you have 3 times to make a mistake before he loses his life. So now I'm going to shrink this down so you can see what I'm doing. View, zoom out. I come on up. And I'm going to add 3 characters up here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, right next to each other. 3. There's the 3 lives right there. And you notice I'm still on the character layer. So now we're going to zoom in on what we're doing. Now I want to align these 3 characters to the top of the stage. So I hold down my shift key and I click on the other 2. So I got all 3 of these selected. So all I have to do is I go down to align. So I go window, align. Make sure this is aligned to the stage. Just align them to the top. Now I take away this align to the stage when I want to distribute them relative to each other, so they're the same distance apart from each other. So I take out this align to the stage, and I click this middle one, align, distribute them equally. So now they look the way they're supposed to. I'm just going to put the check mark in here so I don't forget to do this next time we open this, to have it aligned to stage. And I just close this out. So now before I leave the character layer, I'm just going to lock it. And now we're going to go back here and look at collection items. So remember, in various games you played before, Pac-Man and that kind of stuff, Luigi, remember he had to collect some stuff? You go over that and it comes up in here. So we're going to do the same. We're going to add some collection items to our game. Ooh! So he's going to collect snacks. So now I'm going to add another layer. Make sure it's at the top. If it's not, just drag it up there. And we're going to call this one items. Okay, once again I'm going to zoom out so I can see all my edges here, because I'm going to drag my food items in here. So I'm going to go get my burger. Put that in one corner. I go put my cake in another corner. Go get my chicken. Put that in another corner. And put my grapes in another corner. So now before we go on to level 2, just check your work. Make sure your project's on track. Make sure your game screen looks like this. Make sure that you have all your layers. That you got your collection items. That you got your character. You got your maze on top of the maze shadow here. Okay, if your game screen looks like this, just lock all the layers. Then just save your project and you're welcome to Lab 2. In this lab, you're going to add the action script. Okay? You're going to help the character move with the arrow keys. You're going to add hit tests. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the actions panel. So I'm going to come up here to Window. I come down to Actions. Now I'm going to put this where I want it to be. I might want to minimize it. And now I'm going to open up the character Now I'm going to click on the character. I'm going to name his instance. So I'm going to name player. Click enter. Now what I'm going to do is add a new layer. So I go add a new layer button here. I want to come up here and lock my layers, right? Click up an item so I don't add a layer where I don't want it to be. Click add new layer. And I call this one what? Code. Now if it isn't up at the top, you drag it up to the top, right? So I click up and one. And now I'm going to open my actions frame here. I'm going to type in stop. Remember our old stop command? The quotation marks, and then we also put in the semicolon. Okay, best practices when you're adding code, you add it to its own layer. You add it to a frame. ActionScript 2 is going to let you code frames and symbols, but it keeps your code much simpler if you add it to its own layer. That's why we do it that way. And the one benefit too of doing it that way, you can always see which item you're adding code to in the Actions panel. Another thing you're allowed to do is you're allowed to pin open tabs. You're coding where you think you are, okay, so you don't accidentally code the wrong thing. So you can pin open a tab in the Actions panel. All you do is you click this push pin symbol, and that'll lock it open to that particular frame. So you pin open tab, it stays open even when you select other frames or items in the stage. So that's a real handy tool to have. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our frame in the player layer. So I'm going to come over here to the character, open that up, and click on this. Then click on the character. So I can come here and see it says I'm coding the player. I can lock it on that, right? So now I can come up to this code layer, and if I open up the actions, it's still on the player. See that? So you can go back and forth and you're still coding where you think you are recording. It's real cool. So if I click on this pin active script, it'll take me out of the layer and it'll put me back on the code 1 layer. See where it says stop? Now once again, you know, we can use this to move our X and Y keys. Remember this? If I move the X, if I take away from the X value, it moves my player this way. If I add to the X value, it moves it this way. If I take away from the Y value, it moves it this way. If I add to the Y value, it moves it this way. So you see how the X, Y arrow keys work. Okay, now the player character has different views. If you double click the character, you would see that it has a front, back, left, and right view. So when the arrow key is pressed, you're going to add a code that tells the character which image they're going to see. So this is how we're going to code our up arrow key. If the key is down, it's going to move up 5 pixels every time you click. Player go to and stop back means the player's back when the up key is pushed. That's basically what we're saying here. So now we're going to use an event handler. That's going to tell Flash when to run the code for the arrow keys that move the character. The event we're going to use is the enter frame. Okay, these are just ActionScript events. And it means that the code will run every time Flash refreshes the frame. And how often does the Flash refresh the frame? 24 times per second. So the code is going to check 24 times every second to see if the arrow key is pressed. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go get our copy code file. Open. And go Project 3 copy code. And now we're going to grab this from line 4 to line 10. Right click copy. back to our dragon layer, open back up our actions frame, and I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to paste Control V right after that. So your code ought to look like this. This is the code we were talking about. Now I check it to make sure that it checks. Okay. Now I run the program, and now I see if that now I see the player's back, right? That's what you're supposed to see. Now what if it didn't run? What if it didn't work? Check to make sure your code is right. Did you paste everything? Do you have those two curly braces at the end? How about player here? If I go back into the character and I click on the player, did I name the instance player, or did I label it something else? Remember, the code does not go on the character. Okay, I shouldn't see anything on the character code. If you forgot to unlock this, then that's wrong. Take it off this layer here and put it where it belongs. Okay, you should see it up here on your code frame. So you should see stop. Then you should see the rest of this. Just make sure it says just that. Okay. And if you got code on the character frame, take it off. So now the character does not just move up, does he? But the player can also go left, right, and down too, right? We code the up key. So now what do you do if the player is going down, left, or right? So that's where an else if statement is valuable. Okay, we have if it's going up, code this way. So now we're going to add if it's going left, if it's going right, or if it's going down. And that's where your else if statement comes. You say, it's like saying, Mom, I'm going to the movies. Else if my favorite movie isn't playing, I'm going to go to the mall, right? That's a weird way of saying it, but that you could say it that way, right? So here's the other arrow key code you're going to be putting in. Okay, this statement's going to end, and then we're going to paste this next to it. So what happens is you can press one of four arrow keys. So are you pressing the up arrow key? Are you pressing the down arrow key? You're pressing the left arrow key, or if you're pressing the right arrow key. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize this, go get my action code, and I'm going to grab from line 14 all the way to line 23, right click copy, come back out to the Dragon Tamer game, open up my actions frame, and now right between those two curly braces I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to right click paste. Now I see I do end up having two curly braces at the bottom, so I make sure that I put those between the two curly braces. I pasted them. Now I'm going to check my syntax, and now I'm going to run my movie, see if it works. I go up, down, right, and left. So there you go. You did it. So if it doesn't work, make sure you put this else if stuff that you added after that curly brace, and not when you don't have two curly braces here, okay? So you should have one curly brace there and two at the bottom. Now we're going to code the maze. So I'm going to lock the character. I'm going to open up the maze, and I'm going to click on the first layer here. Then I'm going to click outside in the gray area. Then I'm going to click on the wall of the maze. Don't accidentally click in between them, okay? So now I should see instance name. So where it says instance name, I'm going to call this maze. And remember, we actually clicked the wall of the maze, not in between. So just click enter. So now we're going to run some maze hit tests with our character. So the character is contained within the walls of the maze. So if the character, we're going to get the bounds of the character again. Remember, we're going to, since we're dealing with the instance of the maze, we got to get the character boundaries again, just like we did with the ship in the last lab. So we want to do a hit test between the maze's shape flag and a point on the left edge of the player's bounding box. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a hit test between the player and the maze. Are we going to kill the player if he hits the maze? No. He just won't be able to continue. He has to go down or, be contained within the maze. What that does is just makes the player's character stop when it hits the wall. Here, the next thing I'm going to do is lock the maze layer. Then I'm going to come up to the code layer, and I'm going to open my code up, and I'm going to add a space between those last two curly braces if there isn't one, and I'm going to place the new code there. So I'm going to go get the code. So I come down, and I'm going to drag from line 27 all the way down to line 38. Long list of them, isn't there? Go copy. Come back out to the game. Go between those two curly braces at the very bottom. If you didn't make a space, make one. Go enter. And now you can go Control V and put this in there. So now you check your syntax. If it didn't bing you back, check your error. I'm gonna play my game now. Go Control Enter, and see if that the walls of the maze stop me. Yes, it does. Does it stop me up there? It does. Does it stop me down there? It does. So the walls stop me now. Okay, if this doesn't work, make sure you grabbed all the code. And then make sure it looks exactly like this. And you can check it out, if you're not sure, on page 21 of Lab 2. So now before we go on to Lab 3, check your work. Make sure that your character moves through with the arrow keys and can't move through all the walls of the maze. Lock all your layers and click Save. Now you're ready to go into Lab 3.